What's up guys, it's Richie Rich back yet again, and this time I am doing a review of the 99 drama film starring one of my personal favorite actors, Kevin Spacey, and it can only possibly be American Beauty. Be sure to check this out. American Beauty, which came out in the last year of the legendary and popular 90s era. This also came out in the same year of these kind of like dark, twisted films, you know. For example, Fight Club, which was directed by the same guy who directed Seven, came out this year. Being John Malkovich came out also this year, and The Matrix with Keanu Reeves, and last but not least was also The Truman Show starring Jim Carrey. And what I felt, and is like I said, it ties along with this film, you know. It's just one of those on paper, like if you see this and you see like kind of the screenshots and the captions from the films, you feel like you're in just kind of for a standard kind of like a family, you know what families go through, you know, like you got the breadwinner, you got the mother, you've got the, you know, the composed that teenager is very insecure about itself. You feel like that's the film you're going to go into, but once you actually see this, it really has a deeper story that's intact with this film that has never ever been seen before. On to the plot of this fantastic, stellar film from 1999. Let me talk about the cast. You know, so the principal cast is, you have Kevin Spacey, you have Annette Bening, you have Wes Bentley, you have Thora Birch, and you also have Mena Savari, and you also have Chris Cooper. Fine ensemble of cast, you know, led to all the way to the promised land. You know, what would it be without the main leading actor in this, Kevin Spacey, you know? Spacey, at least for me, he was first like brought to my attention is I saw him in two films which I only watched because of him, you know, and this was LA Confidential and also The Usual Suspects, you know, which were, you know, released during the mid-90s, you know. What I always love with let's see if we got a picture now, Kevin Spacey, and that is he's an actor who combines like a lot of like kind of qualities of like, he can be charming, he can be very intelligent, and he can always just switch to be that kind of like ruthless, vindictive villain. You know, like it's always depending like what film you see him, you know. He shows them some qualities as he is in LA Confidential. Then another film I didn't forget to mention, Negotiate, starring Samuel Jackson. We see what he becomes in this, you know. He played like Lex Luthor in Superman. You know, he's just a great actor who's able just to combine different personalities of, you know, Kevin Spacey. His performance in this wasn't unseen by the Academy, you know. It was a major well done performance, you know, and I to this day still think this is one of his finest performances ever on screen. Leading lady just behind Kevin Spacey is Annette Bening, who is in also the Siege, starring Denzel Washington and Bruce Willis. Mars Attack, which is a, you know, personal favorite of mine. She and him have just gone into that kind of as marriage couples do, you know. First when they meet, you know, they're young, they're dumb, and they're in love. As they start to grow older, you know, they get the family, they get the house, you know, people start to grow and change, and it's so evident because the film captures basically Lester having a midlife crisis, you know, and as he's having this, you know, he's like kind of sense of like, you know, his wife that he doesn't even love anymore, his child that's just there because of like, you know, at one point he did love this woman, you know what I mean. He has all these kind of accessories with him, and he feels like he doesn't need it anymore, you know what I mean. Just, you know, it's the whole kind of thing of like, you're just creating, you know, so much stress, you know, because of just the responsibilities that you've grown up to have of just having that regular life. You know, he has the job as, I believe it's in an office, you know, so it's definitely a corporate world, you know, so obviously he can't, you know, stand this job. So that really opposes like Annette Bening's character, you know, because she wants to succeed. In this one, she works as a real estate, you know. So Carolyn Bellingham, that's how she basically like conducts herself, you know. She's not trying to basically stay in this kind of sense, stay in this position, you know, that like Lester's finished. She's trying to move up in the world. So the supporting cast, name the main three, you know. So you got Flora Birch, you know, who plays Lester's daughter, who plays Jane. You know, she's like the younger 17-year-old daughter who she goes into, and this is where the story really gets interesting. She goes to school with the you know, blonde bombshell Mena Savari, who's playing Angela Hayes. You know, I believe it's the best casting that the film has done completely. You know, she looks and is perceived as a minor, you know what I mean, and a minor who's very like kind of like, you know, flirtatious, you know, like even in the first scenes that like Lester meets Angela, you know, she's very like, just like she doesn't even care like if his wife is right there, you know. Carolyn and Annette Bening's character, you know, just very spontaneous, very flirtatious, and just very kind of like she kind of just wants to experiment. So she finds attraction from when she sees Jane's dad in Lester, and Lester sees her as like a way he can kind of escape this kind of manifestation that is put him in of this kind of like regular society, regular job, regular household, you know, because he just gets to a point of like, he's just, you know, he has nothing to lose. He legit doesn't give a F-U-C-K, you know. So when he sees this girl, he's just like, from the moment he meets her, he's just like, I wanna, the nicest way I can put that, I wanna on that. You know, which is cool. Not least, you've got I'll put them two together. You got Wes Bentley who's playing Ricky Fitz, who goes to the same school as Jane and also Angela, and Wes Bentley's dad, who's played by Chris Cooper and Colonel Frank Fitz. You know, the dad, Colonel Frank Fitz, he's someone who's gone to the military, done his service, and now just lives in a quiet like residue of this suburban area where this film's based, you know. And he's basically got his son, who's basically like a recovering junkie, you know. I believe he's been sent away, he's brought back, sent away, you know. And the dad's basically there to just keep him intact and check within the whole film. But as you can see, as the film starts to go on, he starts to just like goes back to his old habits, you know. Like scenes when he meets Lester for the first time, you know, he's like selling him weed, you know, the grass. You know what I mean? Because he sells him the grass, you know, because Lester feels like this time he doesn't care about anything, you know. So he just wants to kind of relive his old days, you know, because that's when he found fun and true existence in his life. You're just introduced to, you know, the obviously leading actor Kevin Spacey, Lester, who's basically a 44. He's middle age. He's in his mid to late 40s. He works as a magazine executive. You know, he's got his wife and he's got his daughter Jane. You know, and from the first screening, you automatically think like, this is what you're supposed to achieve at this stage of life. You know, like he should be like commended and applauded. You know what I mean? But in his mind, he's come to the point like he's just sick of this whole kind of like everyday kind of going, you know, just the whole ordinary ness of just life for him, you know. I mean, he's tired of it, you know. And as through a series of events, you know, because he knew that his wife, you know, who was the estate agent, because most of the times when Lester's out, you know, he's out working, you know, mainly sole breadwinner, mainly the main breadwinner, you know. Like he's always leaving his wife, you know. He's always suspected, you know, his wife's cheating on him, as is shown later on the film, you know. He goes into his he actually has a meeting with his boss. So once he actually gets to his where he's working as a magazine executive, he has like a meeting with his boss, and the boss is basically telling him that like he's gonna have to, he invites him for a meeting, and he's gonna tell him that he's gonna try to fire him unless he can express in some kind of form that why I should have value to this company and why you should stick with me. And Lester kind of flips it on him, saying like one of the other guys who is even above him uses the salary to solicit prostitutes, you know. And it's not like a couple bucks, it's not like a couple grand. It's talking about like 50,000 stages, and the guy has a wife. And he was saying it's ridiculous because that's taking away people's salaries. And here I am working my behind for you lot, and then you just want to fire me because I'm basically doing everything right, you know. And it's just from this and this and that, you know. Like it's just the whole thing, especially with his wife, you know. Like they're married, but they're basically not in love with each other. So you know, they're not having sex, you know what I mean? They just sit and they're on the bed and they just like sleep on the opposite sides, you know, like they're forced, like they're handcuffed together, you know, and all that kind of negative energy even makes it a toxic place for even Jane to, you know, just be a teenager. You know, it's just that Jane just cannot stand this, and the whole thing is she just wants to get out, you know, and that's where she kind of links on to, you know, Wes Bentley's character, who's also in that kind of same situation of he doesn't want to kind of be with, you know, his father, because the father, the colonel, is very, very strict. The father, played by Chris Cooper, the father played by Chris Cooper, you know, he's very, very strict disciplinary of his son, you know, because it's shown that he was already Ricky was already sent to psychiatric, you know, hospitals. He's already sent to a military academy. So, you know, as I said, you know, he doesn't want him kind of tipping off. So he's always kind of on him. Going on to like, you know, Wes Bentley's character, Ricky, you know, that whole scenes of like, you know, him with the camcorder and he's like, you know, recording like the, you know, that bag moving, you know, that kind of, you know, the plastic bag, you know. He also like just film randomly. He was filming like Jane one time at night when she had like Angela house, you know, just to kind of see the beauty. And you know, Chris Cooper is introduced. Chris Cooper playing Frank. He automatically is shown to have a distaste for homosexuals. You know, that's the main like underlining thing with him. Anytime he sees, because there's a gay couple who actually lives in the same address, same neighborhood that they're all in, you know, they're all neighbors and that, and he's a gay couple and he just automatically has distaste for them, you know. We're just in the middle of the film where there's this told like Jane is trying to become a cheerleader, you know, so the parents Lester and also Carolyn, you know, they go to see their daughter perform in that kind of halftime kind of show in the gymnasium, you know. And as like they're both there, you know, Lester and, you know, Carolyn are seeing the daughter perform, just beside them is Angela, you know. And through like Lester's lens, Kevin Spacey's lens, when he's seeing her, everyone's blocked out, you know. It's like him and her are the only ones in this gymnasium, and it's just this kind of seductive dance, you know. And it just really, really kind of basically like, you know, turns like Lester's, you know, Kevin Spacey's character on, you know. And from that moment, you know, I remember like when she kind of opens up and, you know, basically with the petals, which is basically meant to signify, you know, what he perceives as American beauty, he immediately becomes fixated with her, you know. They both, once they are going to the parking lot, you know, he like quickly congratulates Jane's like, hey Jane, that was really good. Hi, I'm Lester, I'm Jane's father, how are you and what's your name? His only just focus is this Jane's friend, you know, Angela. From like from that like scene, as the film starts to like move on, Kevin Spacey just starts to have like just these wild fantasies, you know, these kind of what ifs he got with this girl. And that, you know, there's one like probably the most steamy scene like I've ever seen, you know. He's in his pajamas and he opens the door, you know, and he goes into this kind of, he basically goes into the next room, which is meant to be the bathroom, and it's this kind of like this cloud of smoke, like you're walking into like you know, the most kind of like exotic kind of like fortress and that. And there you see Angela, you know, my Mendes character inside the bathtub, you know, waiting for Lester. And cool, you know, get goosebumps even like, you know, speaking about that scene, you know, I definitely encourage you to watch that bit, you know. But let's just say like all of his fantasies were realized. When Lester showing his attraction to Angela Mendes character, you know, Ricky and also Jane, they start to bond closer, you know, like as he's like with the camcorder, you know, he's always secretly recording Jane every time when she's at the school, sometimes at the house because you know they're directly opposite, they're next door neighbors, you know, so you know, at the start she finds it annoying. She's calling him a freak, but it just so happens as she starts to go and she starts to like it. You know, like you know, why is this guy paying so much attention to me? He must really like me. You know, and you know, there's one scene like you know, he's basically at her house. You know, and she just expresses his distaste for like her father, Lester. You know, Kevin Spacey. You know, he just feels like he's just he's his dad. He's her dad, but you know, the dad he just feels like the dad just has her as because he's supposed to have her. You know, I mean, like the criteria of you know, you get married, you get your family, and you get your house, and you have your job. You know what I mean? So there's no real kind of love and bond, you know. Alongside this, Caroline, who's in sometimes the background of this film, you know, she starts to have like a affair with like a married businessman, like businessman Buddy Kane, you know, that's the guy with the huge eyebrows, you know what I mean? But like Annette Bening's character Carolyn is just very attracted to him because he's just so different from Lester, and the way kind of he carries himself is more of kind of like that like everything is under control, you know what I mean? Like he's more of like if you wanted to say the word like kind of alpha, you know what I mean? He's wearing nice suits, he can get expensive dinner, and I think with Carolyn always saw that he could actually kind of take care of them, you know what I mean? Like a woman always needs like a kind of king to kind of take them, protect them, and he always for Lester when he was in the house kind of like you know complaining about like the job, complaining about how the household is, complaining about how he doesn't get intimate with his wife anymore. Yeah. Caroline just found that just very like pestering, and she couldn't understand it anymore. You know, so that's why I would believe one of the reasons why she was so interested in like jumping on Mr. Kane. Then you go on to that part where the boss so at the magazine firm where Lester's working, the boss calls him in again and he says he's gonna get laid off. You know, and it's legit because it just came to a point obviously where this time Lester, you know, he didn't care, you know, so he was like, if I'm gonna get laid off, he's gonna try blackmail the company. You know, he was gonna tell them about like how the upper management was, you know, using company money to get hookers, you know, and he was gonna even try to put like a sexual harassment case on the boss. He leaves basically with 1 year salary, takes his, you know, when you take them boxes and you leave that kind of cubicle in that kind of corporate environment, and it feels like it's the happiest days of his life, you know, and he straight goes into a fast food restaurant like a Burger King, like a McDonald's, like a Popeyes, and he takes a position as you know the drive-through. You know the drive-through clock basically says, "Can I have your order, please?" Those ones, fries and burgers. He goes into there. You know how kind of like karma works. When Lester's on shift at the fast food joint, you know what's it, Buddy, Mr. Kane, and Carolyn, you know they're driving to the fast food to go order food, and Lester is right there in front of like one of his you know, the female work colleague, and she's like, "Ah, oh, you're so busted," you know, and it's like one of those things. What could you say? You couldn't do anything. Gives him the meal, and he says, I'm not mad. I just want you to be happy, but you will never tell me anything to do again. You never tell me anything that I have to do again." Esther has just found this new kind of, you know, breed for life, you know. I mean, like he sees him working out now, more confident, the way he can like, you know, speaks to people, just his mannerisms, you know. It's like he likes being Lester, you know, for once in his entire life, you know, and you know the scenes just become even way more like higher in sexual kind of tension, you know, with him and Angela's character, you know. The scene I always love is when he's like sitting down, it's on the kitchen tables, you know, he's reading like a newspaper next to the fridge, and Angela comes to him and says like, have you been working out? And the camera kind of just slowly pans onto Kevin Spacey, and he's like, do you like muscles? It's a great word. You can see just the tension and the chemistry between two characters. As Lester's trying like really get with like Angela, he's also, you know, spending some time with the Colonel's son, Ricky, you know, as like he was his kind of like supply, you know, to get like his pot, you know. But the Colonel actually gets, you know, wind of this, you know. He starts like creeping in and like, you know, seeing them like out of the window, you know, when they go into the house, you know. And one night, how he's kind of shown in when he's peeping through the window, it looks like Ricky is performing fellatio on Lester. Like you know, he's basically like which he couldn't, which he from the, if you see when he sees the scene, he's legit just like rolling up the joint, you know. He just had to bend down, you know. But like he comes back to the house, you know, and like, you know, Chris Cooper, the Colonel, he comes in and he starts just kicking the tarmac of like Ricky. You know, he said, I didn't send you to military school, I didn't send you to the psychiatrist just to be a homosexual, you know, in like, you know, them unflattering terms, you know. And like Ricky Joe automatically kind of like is like, well, what is it with you, you know? Why do you have this kind of like thing? I ain't gay, you know. I am not gay. He kicks him out, you know. And Ricky automatically, he just says like, you know, you're just a sad old man, you know, because they've had this similar to how like their kind of relationship, Lester and Carolyn's, you know, of like they're married, but they're just married because just to say on the paper, you know, they don't love each other, you know. It's the same way how Chris Cooper and his wife is in this, you know. They're just so despondent. The wife is so despondent. She just says, hi, bye, Ricky. You know, it's just like she just doesn't even care anymore. So on that kind of thing, which is nearly coming to the end, you know, he basically says like, well, you know, I'm splitting. I'm out here. And he tells his mother that, you know, he's gone. The mother doesn't even try to stop him. You know, Ricky just replies to her, you know, just take care of dad, you know, and I, you know, always, you know, cherish you, always love you, you know. So he straight jets back to, which is next door. He goes to see Jane, who Jane, funny enough, is with as a sleepover, you know. Angela's inside the room. He basically goes to her and says, if you would like to leave with me tonight, would you? And she thinks of it like, what? You must be crazy. He says, he repeats it again and he says, look, I've already got this amount of cash. I know some people in New York City, drug dealers, we need to leave right now. And she says, yes. You know, the Colonel like kicked Wes Bentley's character, Ricky, out of the house, you know, and him and Jane are, you know, trying to escape, you know. He goes in to meet Lester, and, you know, he says like, you know, Ricky, the Colonel basically says like, you know, where's your wife and all that. And Lester tells like, oh, you know, he just says, you know, his wife is having an affair, but he doesn't care. And the Colonel goes, your wife is having an affair and you don't care? And he says, Lester says, yeah, you know. And because he's so wet and, you know, from the rain, and he just looks like he's just beaten up and destroyed, you know, Lester tries to comfort him. And after that, like, he gets up, the Colonel, he lays one on his lips, you know, and, you know, immediately, you know, Kevin Spacey like rejects, you know, the kind of offer, saying like, you know, I don't know what you got, but that's the wrong idea, you know, like, you know, I ain't gay, you know. And this rejection and embarrassment, you know, it really took him hard, you know. That goes back into the house, goes back to the fridge, and he sees Angela Mendes' character. She's looking through the mirror, you know, and she's just kind of like just kind of confused, like, why would her best friend have to go live with what she quote unquote says is a widow, you know. And her thing is like, she so badly doesn't want to be ordinary, you know. She's someone who's so you know, fixated about how she looks on the outside rather than she's in the inside, you know. And this is the point in the film, like, you know, Lester has this kind of chance to basically accomplish what he's wanted to do, you know, kind of sleep with this with this hot blonde minor, you know. Hey, Mena playing Angela was a virgin all along, You know, she just was just like kind of flirtatious by design, but she never ever actually did it. You know, so the moment when you know, he gets back up, Lester, he just takes a long look. You know, similar to how Mark Wahlberg does that in Boogie Nights. You know, when he's just thinking like, you know, what, you know, that kind of realization moment. You know, and he just oh my, it clicks like, you know, this is wrong. You know, it goes on to like you know, this is not what I really wanted to do, you know, afterlife thing. You know, it's like it went from just this kind of sexual object to a 17-year-old teenager who's the same age as his daughter. So like, you know, he ends up you know, letting her letting her go, you know, which is cool, you know, the old thing, you know, he lets her go, and she like he basically leaves. And you see just seeing like, you know, Lester's there, you know, he's on his table, he's looking at a picture, and like you just hear this gunshot, you know, and it shows scenes. I love how they do it. They show scenes of like the other supporting characters, you know, Carolyn's there, Ricky's there, the Colonel's there, Jane's there, you know, so no one really knows like what's happened or who's done it, you know. All you just hear is gunshot wound, and you just see Lester like lying on the table, you know, brains blown out. Later that it was indeed the Colonel. You know, he had like his pistol missing from one of his holders. You know, he comes back to the house. He comes back to the house, you know, from the wet thing. He was wearing a different kind of like top, you know, and he puts his stuff, you know, and you know that was just because like he didn't, you know, Lester didn't go to his advances, you know. And irritation, you know, as like Lester's doing it for the movie, you know, and he just like, you know, me concludes that even though like his life came to the end, he was able to kind of experience like that in what he thought the highness of what life can be, you know, legit living life to his fullest, you know. And he was so kind of like happy that he was able to do that before the ultimate, you know, end of the book, you know. And that's pretty much American Beauty. The soundtrack that pretty much was conducted by Thomas Newman, a great composer from back in the day. You know, he was the one who did the complete and entire musical score for this film, you know. And as stunning and as like you know, sensational the film is, you know, where would it be with this soundtrack? You know, from the first music kind of like, you know, montage that is shown, like when Kevin Spacey, aka Lester, is narrating, you know, the score that plays within the, you know, introduction, you know, to the whole family. The score is called Dead Already, you know, which is the main title of theme that is played from the beginning and throughout the whole film, you know, the one that goes like dun 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 dun, the one that kind of hits them two notes as a series as the score goes, you know. And notable score, as I mentioned, was when they're in the bathtub, which is called You Choking the Bishop, you know, that the elegance of that theme tune and what is actually going on in that scene, you know, works together so well that you kind of feel, if you could sometimes put yourself in Lester's shoes, you could feel like he's actually, with this whole like kind of sexual fantasies being desired, it feels like for him like he's actually walking through the pearly gates of heaven. Merit how Kevin Spacey performs this, because it's not seen as like, okay, this is a guy who tipped and went insane, you know. I don't think like the way how Kevin Spacey plays Lester, he's insane. It's nothing to do with mental health or insanity or none of that. It's just legit, just the most ordinary, normal guy, you know, who pays his taxes, is married, all of the above, you know, who's just tired of these constraints of society bullying him to basically do what the system wants you to do. American Beauty, who would I recommend this film to? If anyone is a fan of, or most importantly, anyone's a fan of Kevin Spacey at his highest pinnacle of his powers as an actor, definitely check this out. And also, I think this also applies to anyone who's kind of like stuck in like where they're kind of going with it. It could be relationship, it could be career. You would really love this kind of film, you know, like it's not too late to change. But stay tuned for more upcoming 90s reviews that will be always dropping on Tuesdays. And as always, it is peace to fingers.